before we get into the video, if you do want your own trade recapped or you want a little bit of a Q&A that is completely free, I do that every day in my Discord at 11 a.m. Eastern. So if you're interested in that, make sure you join up. And yeah, let's just get right into the high time frame. So what did I want to see going into this week? Well, essentially this entire week we've been distributing off of this initial manipulation, right? We had swept out this low inside of a fair value gap, so it's an intermediate low, which is a very good manipulation point. And you can see that we just had insane displacement beyond that, right? Wasn't really looking for a reversal here because it was a super mitigated daily gap. We were obviously respecting bullish, disrespecting bearish, and leading up to that we would have a very good draw, an unmitigated daily fair value gap and a previous week high. So if price draws to liquidity and imbalances, this is genuinely the perfect DOL because it offers both very high quality liquidity and imbalances, right? Completely unmitigated, and it's a weekly draw after weekly manipulation, right? So it aligns perfectly. And with that going into the day, obviously, like we're just kind of trending. We did print this LR, but I wasn't really worried about it. You can see it here. I said healthy 4-hour gap. Hopefully we can get this distribution to the previous week high and the unmitigated fair value gap I've been wanting, right? So this is that fair value gap that I marked out. And we got exactly that, right? So let me just go and crop this. Right, we got exactly that. We had struck into the 4-hour gap, displaced through all of these highs, and it was very abundantly obvious that we were just going to steamroll to previous week high in this daily unmitigated gap. And that's exactly what we did. We ended up taking out, let me just go and bring this up closer. We ended up taking previous week high and then generating a ton of liquidity leading up to this daily unmitigated fair value gap. And so, of course, I'm going to target this abundant LR with a gap because why would I not, right? You run up to a gap or run up to a high time frame DOL, print a bunch of failure swings, a bunch of low resistance liquidity. That is exactly what I want. If you watch any of my recaps, you'll always talk about or you'll always hear me talk about low time frame LR leading up to a high time frame DOL. It is the best way to trade, in my opinion, because you're just combining the best parts of it, right? You're combining high time frame significance with low time frame significance in the form of low resistance liquidity, right? And obviously we then retraced into this 15-minute fair value gap right here. And this is the same thing, right? How I would expect this 4-hour gap to distribute us up to these draws, I would then expect this 15-minute continuation gap, right, from the 4-hour. I would admit it is pretty premium, but I was just kind of expecting a run here. I mean, we were so bullish this day. There was a ton of displacement, and we had edged this draw, so I was okay with taking this key level. I did hear some people say that this 30-minute would have been better, and I do agree. Yeah, it would have been better, but that's just kind of asking for, you know, the perfect scenario, which is good in trading, but you're obviously not going to have a setup with 0 drawbacks, right? There's always going to be something that could be better with the setup, and you just have to accept that risk, right? This is a part of the probability of trading, and you're not going to have a guaranteed setup. So we had appeased the high time frame criteria, and I wasn't really tripping about the 30-minute below us. And so this is where my entry came about, right? We're inside of this 15-minute fair value gap. This is the PO3, right? So remember how I was talking about how we generated liquidity leading up to this gap? Well, it also happened inside of a high time frame candle, which is perfect, right? Now we have a high time frame candle with the manipulation, with the generated liquidity, right? You can see 1030 opens high, does not sweep our external. I know we did put in an SMT, but I wasn't really worried about the SMT after this because we ended up generating so much low resistance. So it's like, okay, it's not really a big deal. It also wasn't inside of a gap, right? The perfect SMT would have been up here with that daily unmitigated gap, as you can see, not really just randomly placed. And so this is what I targeted. We had really good structure. Oh, actually, I'm not done with that. And we went lower, right? So in terms of PO3, you'll hear me mention it a lot. Opening price of a high time frame candle, you should treat like equilibrium, right? Anything above it is a premium. Anything below it is now a discount. But with that, you can add in new candles. This is kind of like the relationship between 930 and 945 that I've talked about. This is 1030 and 1045. It's mainly just how 2 high time frame candles play into that PO3, right? Because the 30-minute candle is still actively open at this point, but the 15-minute candle also open. So two high time frame candles are actively being traded inside of at the exact same time. And then you can also make it even more with the 10 a.m., but that just kind of like adds too much. Like, I wasn't really looking at that for my trade. But you can see, on top of being in this time discount from 10:30, we also did that for 10:45, right? We had perfectly went lower. This is an open, low, high close scenario, or at least that's what I was expecting. I did end up losing this trade. But we swept this low and then instantly reacted. It actually is perfect, right? So ask yourself, whenever using PO3, what do, right? Literally, what do we do? That's all you have to ask. Well, to the buy side, we do nothing. If anything, we actually generate liquidity, kind of how 9:30 did or 10:30 did. We didn't take out any liquidity, no manipulation to the buy side, but then all of the manipulation to the sell side. We ended up clearing all of this LR over here, this swing, right? Like, imagine we just left this swing and then went up kind of like this, right? Like, you get super close to the swing and then we start reacting. That would have been a drawback, but instead price had cleared out all of the LR, filled up the imbalance, and then started displacing above, targeting this LR and this unmitigated gap. It's exactly what I wanted. It genuinely is a perfect scenario. If you watch my other recaps, I draw out this exact same structure, so it's what I'm looking for every time, of course. I'll go ahead and keep that. And of course, I take this trade. It ends up hitting stop loss, unfortunately. But let's go into trade management, of course, right? Why do I think this trade lost? And what could I have done better? I know some people went break even here because of what? This 4-minute gap. Why was I not really worried about this 4-minute gap, nor would I ever go break even here? This 4-minute gap defends low resistance liquidity, right? So how we had all of this LR up here, we then made this 4-minute gap. And to me, I see this 4-minute gap as simply just a little bit of resistance, not a reversal opportunity. Obviously, it did. Probabilities do exist. This is simply a statistical loss, and it's a part of the 30%, so I'm not really upset about it. But countless times have I not gone break even at this initial gap. We maybe have like a little bit of a retrace, maybe a little bit of a chop, but then we would eventually distribute to our DOL. If you look at my last recap, this is that same exact scenario, but it was a 3-minute gap. I would highly recommend y'all watch that video because it's the exact same scenario. But I would expect this to get ran through because the gap is just as strong as the liquidity it defends, right? Go ahead and write that down. A fair value gap is just as strong as the liquidity it defends. So in this scenario, this gap is defending LR leading up to that high time frame DOL. So this gap doesn't really have a reason to be respected other than just like rebalancing to this 30-minute gap below that we mentioned, but I'm not really worried about that. So the DOL that it could distribute to is somewhat valid, but I feel like the DOL to the buy side is so much more of a good and valid draw than going lower in this scenario. And so I didn't go break even. Some people did, some people didn't. I actually wouldn't really recommend going break even here. I'm perfectly happy with how I played this. And if you did go break even, I want you to ask yourself, would you say that you have a high break even rate? And I was talking to this one dude that did go break even here, and he completely agreed with that. Because going break even here is simply just mechanically going BE at like any imbalance, any sort of resistance. You want to take risk off the table. You need to accept risk in your trades. You can ask yourself this question, which is very easy. Is the probability we reverse off of this liquidity pool enough to invalidate my high time frame conviction? Right, so you can just simply ask yourself this question, right? Is the probability we reverse off of this liquidity pool, being that 4-minute, enough to invalidate my high time frame conviction? And in this scenario, it's really not, because the liquidity it defends is low resistance. Therefore, the gap itself is low resistance to me. Obviously, it ran my stop loss, but it is what it is. And so I ended up taking a loss on this. It did end the win streak, unfortunately, but that's just what it is. You know, I can't really change that. It's a part of the statistic, and I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna do this again the next trading day. I would take this trade 1,000 times over. I really did like it. The PO3 was perfect. The DOL was perfect in my opinion. It all played into itself, and it was just a very good trade. And yeah, that's really all I have to say. I don't really ever make these recaps super long or lengthy. I feel like I can explain all of, my thoughts within just a few minutes. I will say this again, if you do want your trade recapped, if you are interested in getting free Q&A, shit like that, because I do this all for free because I work for PB, so this is just like kind of for my YouTube. I would highly recommend joining up on that. I give it free call outs. You can see like I was marking stuff out here. Like I'm actively developing price with y'all. I'm giving you not really signals, but there was low key like a signal one day. And of course this as well, right? We could go lower, but obviously we can go higher after a high time frame retrace, stuff like that. And I'm very active in here as well. So if you're interested in that, make sure you join up. Also use code BNQ with Alpha Futures, little plug in there. And yeah, hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll catch you on the next one.